Dancing doesn't come naturally to everyone. It takes time and patience. However, if you have a love for it,
I would say try it. And you can't, a dancer isn't made in a week or a year or even 5 years usually. Martha Graham said 10 years, and that's about right if you're serious. So you have to work hard, and there are no promises. So yeah, it's hard, and it's like sports. It's the same, any kind of physical training. That your body is much slower than your mind in lots of ways, and it has to be trained by repetition and rigor. Just constantly talking to yourself about why this is important.
For 25 years now, the North Carolina Dance Festival has been part of the fabric of North Carolina and an opportunity for dancers and choreographers to perform. But how did this idea come about?
Totally by accident. That was, John Gamble was the head of the dance department, and we had known each other before. And so when we had worked together before, and so it was kind of neat to have an old colleague there, and we realized that a lot of the kids who went to UNCG didn't know and they didn't know very much about dance at all, and they didn't know the first thing. Well, what's happening in Durham? I don't know. What's happening in Winston-Salem? I don't know. So we started inviting some of the artists that we knew from those cities to come and perform at UNCG because we had this wonderful dance theater. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a beautiful space, perfect for dance. And people would come, the dancers would come, and they loved the space. And even though we didn't have much money to give them, just the opportunity to perform was worth it. And audiences came, and we started thinking, okay, well, we should do this next year. So we did it next year, and it went just as well, different artists. And so then we thought, well, we shouldn't just be promoting artists from outside, we should bring in Greensboro artists too. And so the third year we started bringing in Greensboro artists. And then we doubled the number of artists. I mean, it just sort of took on a life of its own. People wanted it, and there was sort of a hunger for this kind of local support. And then I was part of a program that the North Carolina Arts Council put together, a consulting program for how to run your arts business. And Nello McDaniel is the person I talked to, and he said, well, why don't you take it on tour? That had never occurred to me. But I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So I called up a friend of mine who teaches at Boone, and I called up a friend of mine who teaches at Duke, and said, would you host this if we get it together? And it wouldn't cost you anything except production costs. And they said yes. And so then we started touring. And at one point we had 6 different sites that we toured to. But economic fluctuations and changes in politics have had that go up and down. So now we're back to 3 sites this year. And this year is going to be our 25th anniversary. That's right. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Any plans for kind of growing that, or?
Well, we're kind of up in the air with what we're going to do with it, whether it should grow or die. I mean, has it fulfilled its need? Or should it go in a different direction? Or should it just keep plugging along? Well, we're trying to sort of talk to people and take the pulse of where the community is.
But it's definitely one of those gems in the Greensboro, certainly in the arts community, but in Greensboro overall.
It is unique in the United States. There's no other state that I know of that has a touring festival of its own artists.
Talking about choreography, sometimes there are some challenges to overcome. Talking about style of dance, dancers, and even the venue itself can present a challenge.
Last year, every year we try to do a season at the Green Hill Center Gallery. And so I was making a new dance for that space. And if you know that space, it has 4 pillars in the middle, and it's huge space, and the audience is going to be seated all around on four sides, and it's a lot of challenges for a choreographer. And the dancers I had invited to be with me, just they were not cohesive. If you know, they weren't a company. They didn't look like they had ever trained together, which was the fact. They had not trained together. So they didn't look like each other. And so trying to get them to do things together was very challenging. And at one point I was about to give up, but then I thought, I just can't cancel this concert and so on. So I plunged through, and it turned out okay. They did their best, and I did my best.
What does one look at when critiquing dances? Keep in mind that not all dances are critiqued to the same set of standards.
If I'm going to a professional concert, I look at it one way, and if I'm going to a student concert, I look at it another way, and that's hard to say this is what I look at. But because I'm interested in design myself, I look for design in other people's work, and I also, it's not only design in terms of space, but it's design in terms of time. So I guess I'm kind of a classicist in some ways, that I want my dance to have a beginning and a middle, a development of an idea, and then come to some kind of closure at the end. And so the design, the arc of development is complete.
There are many opportunities year-round for adults and children in the Greensboro area to take dance, including the Dance Project.
All the arts are means of expression, you know, self-expression, and some of us are more talented with our bodies, and some with our ears and voice, and so I don't say dance specifically, but arts in general. I think kids who grow up without the arts are missing a whole big section of possibility for themselves. Even if it's not professional, it's still a means of developing yourself and your ideas, your thought, your perspective.
Okay. That's all I got. Is there anything you want to add to this?
No, this was good.
We conducted this interview on April 20th of this past year. Shortly after this interview, Jan decided to discontinue her chemo treatments after a 2.5-year battle with cancer. In June, the city of Greensboro had a dedication ceremony for the Van Dyke Performance Space on the first floor of the Cultural Arts Center. Jan donated $1 million to Arts Greensboro in order to make this dance theater possible. On July 3rd, 2015, Jan Van Dyke passed away, but left behind a legacy that will not be forgotten. Here to reflect on Jan Van Dyke and everything she had to offer are the co-directors of the Dance Project, Lauren Trollinger-Joyner and Ann Morris.
We actually are doing a lot of the same things that we were doing before. I tend to focus on the North Carolina Dance Festival, as well as sort of general marketing and grant writing, and Lauren is our school director. Yes. So we're sort of keeping those jobs and then adding on the layer of overseeing the organization as a whole.
As we all know, Jan, she's this beautiful person. You know, you walk up to her and she's gorgeous, very poised and eloquent. Yeah, and elegant and well-spoken. And so I actually have a very clear memory. It happened my second class with her. I had her at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning at UNCG, and I'm not a morning person, and so I tended to be a little late. She did not like that. And we joke about it, you know, we joked about it later, but the day of 9/11, I had her in class, and I was late because I had been watching what had happened on TV, and I walked in, and she was like, "Why are you late?" And I said, "Well, this happened," and I just saw this beautiful moment in her as someone that was older than me, smarter than me, had life experiences. Just look at our whole class and say, this is bad, but we have a choice. We can dance or we can go home. And she said, I think we should dance. And that has not only stuck with me throughout that 9/11 experience, but it stuck with me throughout my life. I mean, you have a choice at any point to keep going or not, and Jan was fearless in every endeavor that she had, and she never saw anything as too small. And that memory is just a brief example of the kind of person that she was. And you know, luckily she mentored me through really hard decisions in my life. And every career choice I made, she was the first phone call I made. And so because of that part of her personality that was like, it's simple, we just make a decision to do it. And that stuck with me for a long time, and she was wonderful.
I don't have as clear a memory of sort of meeting her for the first time. She's just sort of been a constant part of my dance experience here in Greensboro. I was, at UNCG for graduate work and worked with her. I was a teaching assistant for her choreography class, which was one of the first close interactions we really had outside of her technique class. And it was just really interesting. I got to know a lot about her as a person, but also as an artist and a teacher through our conversations about the student choreography in the class. And she was so clear. She was so clear about her opinions and her aesthetic. And that really has stuck with me too, that she was able to express how she felt about dance work, what it made her feel, what it made her think. And she was so clear with everybody. I don't think anybody had any questions about that.
And did it so eloquently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know, it was interesting to watch her in that class teaching these elements of craft to her students, and then later to dance with her in her company and see some of those coming into play in much more complex ways than she was teaching in a beginning choreography class, of course, but to see them in action. So I felt really lucky to have experienced her as a teacher, a mentor, a choreographer, and then, a director in this position.